Bitcoin could be the new currency for global trade, Citibank says. The report explains that Bitcoin in the role of a global trade currency could be used by importers and exports to pay for goods and services directly, simplifying the process of international trade.
So Citibank should know at least the history of money and how money comes into existence, but nevertheless, a good effort, and I applaud them for at least recognizing that they're about to go out of business.
In a report entitled Bitcoin at the Tipping Point, it charts the evolution of Bitcoin from a form of payment to its current status as the store of value. The authors forecast that Bitcoin's core properties combined with its global reach and neutrality could see it morph into the currency of choice for international trade in around 7 years.
It's happening right now because the transaction is the settlement. So you don't need Citibank. It obviates Citibank. It makes Citibank redundant, as are all banks redundant with Bitcoin. I can trade with you as a currency, and it doesn't require any bank. It doesn't require a central bank. So we know that Bitcoin is a tier 1 global store of value, global money, similar to gold in that respect. That it competes with fiat money, and in fact puts fiat money out of business, and all the central banks that peddle fiat money out of business. So the US dollar, as long as it's in good health, they can pretend that the world is suffering from deflation and that they need to hit this 2% inflation target. And they do that by essentially cooking the books, right? They don't include stuff that goes up in price, like healthcare, education, or things that people actually need or want. The point being that with Bitcoin, you have this ability now to transcend all these entrenched oligopolists and establish a new kind of presence that asserts the individual sovereignty, the individual creativity, the individual rights, and the individual dominion of the best amongst us to shine and to be part of a new meritocracy that's driven by unconfiscatable, hardest money ever created since the beginning of, since 400,000 years ago. Bitcoin is something that's pro-humanity. As Paul Tudor Jones even said that gold is a bet on disaster. Bitcoin is a bet on humanity, that it's going to get better. So, I mean, this is part of this is being involved in something that's going to improve humanity, improve what our experience as humans, on this earth, because Bitcoin demonetizes violence, whereas fiat money really monetizes violence. The petrodollar and the whole war industry, and it's all based on fiat money and money printing and that Ponzi scheme of money printing. It's a very violent area. Fiat money is the source of violence. Bitcoin is demonetization of violence. Bitcoin is backed by the global imagination. We as humans want it. Therefore, we as humans will get it. You would open the gates and allow people to be Bitcoin centric. That's the fact. It started off as a means of payment and people are looking at it as a store of value. But in fact, it started off as a store of value and now it's morphing into a means of payment. That's the whole history of money. Well, I think we're seeing a migration out of gold into Bitcoin, and the ETF market proved that. The money flows, the reports you're getting from brokerages tell you that money is being dumped from the gold ETFs and moving into Bitcoin surrogates, GBTC, and other areas. So we're seeing that migration happen right now. And it makes sense because it does everything gold does, but it does it a lot better. It's absolutely scarce, whereas gold is only relatively scarce. It's obviously more portable, it's more divisible, and it's unconfiscatable, which is gold doesn't have that attribute. People can confiscate your gold. It's cheaper to own than gold. Gold has insurance costs, it has storage costs, it has verification costs. Every time you do a major gold play, you've got to get the gold verified by a third party. With Bitcoin, the transaction is the verification. I mean, that's a phrase that I picked up on early on. And as a former stockbroker, you realize that a lot of the cost that goes into brokering is in verification of the transaction. There's a huge what's called the back office. It's just hundreds of people back there verifying trades and doing all the paperwork. With Bitcoin, that's completely taken out of the equation. The transaction is the verification. And certainly Michael Saylor's done a great job in saying, that melting ice cube on the balance sheet, you look at the corporate world, there's trillions of dollars You look at the money management world, there's trillions of more dollars. You look at it versus gold, and is it going to capture part or all of gold's monetization? That's a $9 to $10 trillion market cap. Yeah, that's all happening. So the price is still cheap. And then as a money manager, you figure, I got to own it. You got to keep nibbling at it. It's still cheap. Bitcoin at this price is still incredibly cheap. All the other CEOs look at their huge cash position and they say, you know what? We're going to buy back our own stock. Not only that, we're going to borrow money at 0% and buy back our own stock. And we're going to boost our share price. And oh, by the way, all the executives that have stock options, we're going to boost our stock option value as well. So we're going to take advantage of the Fed and their policies that I think, to be generous, you could say are rogue and destructive. That's about the nicest thing you can say about it. So, but Michael Saylor is saying, wait a minute, I believe that we're at the end game and that this money printing is going to fail to keep the genie in the bottle, and we're going to see inflation happen for real. So I'm going to put my money to work in a way that essentially takes the counter position to what the Fed is doing. And I looked at gold, I looked at Bitcoin, and I did crunch the numbers, and I decided that Bitcoin was the harder money of the two. It had the greatest upside of the two. As Paul Tudor Jones called it, it's the fastest horse in the race, right? Paul Tudor Jones came up with the exact same conclusion 6 months ago and went long Bitcoin. He put 1% of his portfolio in Bitcoin. So a lot of the smart money, Ray Dalio is putting a big percentage of his money into gold, right? So he sees inflation coming. A lot of money managers, you see Warren Buffett got a stake in a gold mine, Barrick Gold. He's also diversifying out of the dollar by putting a lot of money into Japan. That would indicate he's less sanguine about the future of the dollar, right? So that's inflationary right there, potentially. So a lot of the big guns are moving, reestablishing new positions, anti-US dollar. Bitcoin it has the ability to work on you, the investor, in many different ways. And part of it is psychological, and part of it is just from a pure money management perspective. How much do you want to allocate? How much do you want to go into this? And as you get deeper into it, you realize that other people that are talking about it, their arguments are terrible. So we're seeing a once in 1,000 years migration pump from the perception of the premier store of value, number one global top tier money, into something new, and it happens to be Bitcoin.